course, I bought every brush that every teacher recommended along the way. And after time, you find what works for you, right? And I still bought brushes during the watercolor live, like, oh, I want that one. I want that one. But my basic.
Welcome back for another watercolor interview, as I've been interviewing other artists like myself who work in watercolor. If this is your first time, we have a whole series, but without any other further ado, let's go ahead and meet Cindy Briggs. Enjoy this interview. I'll talk to you at the other end of the video. Much for joining us, folks. We've done this series of interviewing artists so that you can kind of find out what area of watercolor circles, whether it's hyperrealism or abstract, or like my guest today, Cindy Briggs, who is amazing artist. She travels the world. She even takes other artists to like these wonderful vineyards in Italy and France. She also teaches on Zoom, but we're going to get to know her a little bit today in this interview. And so just go and grab your favorite beverage and maybe some popcorn and enjoy this conversation with Cindy Briggs. How are you, Cindy?
Good. It's great to be here, Gabriel. You've already made me feel welcome and relaxed. So thanks.
Very nice. Could you tell us how you got started in art? Were you right off the get-go, as a kid artist, or did you learn later in life? Can you tell us a little bit how that looked?
Well, my earliest memory is my mom bought me a Van Gogh paint by number set when I got my tonsils out in kindergarten. That I grew up in a family of artists, so I've always been encouraged to paint. My grandmother first taught me to paint roses in watercolor, and my aunt is internationally known, and she really encouraged me along the way. But art is totally my favorite subject through school.
Some people feel and have heard and keep saying this thing that watercolor is the hardest medium, but I'm pretty sure you can tell the story of how watercolor is rewarding.
Watercolor is so great to travel with. It's almost an instant reward because you don't have to slave over setting it up. You can just go for it. And over time, you learn how to fix things that you might designate a problem. I'm sure you've discovered that. And after time, you know how to avoid challenges. But part of that is just the learning process. I actually got a C in watercolor in college. and I look back at that. I wasn't that bad. Why did he give me a C? But I've always loved it. And I think some paintings are learning experiences, and we just look at them that way. And others, sometimes you just hit it out of the ballpark and celebrate everything in between.
That's so good. I totally agree with you. And there are some questions that students are always asking, and how has you've been painting for a while, and how has watercolor changed over time, and also like the industry?
Oh, well, I remember in college that we had to soak our paper and staple it down and let it dry before we could paint. And I have not done that for decades. We have great paper choices. I don't even know what kind of paper I was using back then. Is whatever they had in the bookstore. But yeah, with watercolor blocks and watercolor sketchbooks and big 300-pound paper, different kinds of paper. We have so many choices. And also watercolor, I use Daniel Smith watercolors. Um, you learn professional grade watercolors are made to survive 100 years or more. I don't know that I even understood that when I started and how important that is. But the value in quality watercolors is so worth paying a little extra for it.
I agree. And before we get all nerdy and geeking
Yeah.
out on our materials, could you tell people like what kind of art would you say if we had to pin you in a whole what style of art do you paint?
What style? Yeah, see, I don't want to be limited to anything. You can see behind me, I've been doing a lot of portraits, but I'm also known for my rocks. I paint a lot of Zion and Canyonlands in Utah, Monument Valley, places like that. Yeah, and we went to Ghost Ranch in New Mexico. I love those kind of scenes. But what led me into that was the old world stone buildings in Europe. One thing kind of leads into another. So I didn't really give you an exact answer.
No, that's
Well,
good. What's it like to be a portrait artist? Is it what was it easy for you starting out? Was it hard?
oh, I was totally intimidated by portraits for years. And I went to Taos with my aunt for a workshop, and we had a rainy day. I had no idea where to start. I could draw a portrait easily, but I didn't know what colors to use. And she sat there. Well, she hired a young man to sit and pose for us. And I got to see her paint a portrait. And I thought, okay, now I know what colors to use. And I took some workshops. Carolyn Anderson, hopefully I get the names right. Charles Reed, I learned a lot from him. And my aunt, especially, I started with her. She's an amazing portrait artist. So I had a good foundation, and then it was just a matter of doing it. And the best way to do something is to teach it. It pushes you to simplify what each step is along the way.
I like what I'm hearing. It's helpful to have the mentors. It's
Mhm.
helpful to put in the time, and it's helpful to give back to the community and teach others that where you started in that uncomfortable positioning. What would you say is importance of learning sketching and drawing? And is the sketching done differently than you would if you were to render just a pencil portrait?
Oh, well, one of my favorite things that happened is I went to a girls' camp, and I always take my sketchbook with me. And I had 20-minute sketches with most of the girls. And it just really straight on, it really got me used to painting or drawing the sketch. And then the next week, I had signed up for an oil painting class with my aunt in Wyoming, and it was a Carolyn Anderson oil painting workshop. So it just, sometimes you get opportunities come along that push you. So the drawings were all gifts that made me really focus how each face is a little different. And adding watercolor compared oils, you could go pretty fast in oils too, but I love the translucency of watercolor. It's magical.
Mm. Can you expound on that? How magical watercolor is being a transparent medium?
Yes, because it it glows, it moves, the colors can mingle right on the paper in a way that it doesn't happen with other mediums. And the immediacy of it is wonderful too. Like I did that demonstration for Watercolor Live. It was just like you can throw in greens and purples and quinacridone gold, you can drop in other colors and it just glows. It glows as long as you don't put too many layers of color in there.
I agree. I agree so much. And could you tell us the importance of having good paper so that you can get that glow?
Absolutely. Wish I had one real handy right here. Fabriano. I usually have some nearby. Fabriano 140 pound cold press watercolor paper is great for studies or 8x10 paintings. But if I'm going to do an important, of course they're all important. Even my demo was on 140 pound gold press paper. But if I want to go bigger, I use 300 pound soft press Fabriano paper. You know that. It is a dream to paint on, and you can lift color too. It gives you more time to manipulate the color, and then maybe, oops, I went too far. I can just take my brush and gently lift it too. He's shaking his head.
It's so true. I love that. I love that. Paper during the pandemic, we were all having to wait, 8 weeks to get our shipments. I
Mhm.
accidentally put the code in and then I put a S, I think, instead of a R at the end of the little code. I was ordering rough
Oh,
and this other stuff comes up. I was like, what is this paper? And luckily I was a blessing in disguise because I had portraits and landscape paintings to do for a commission. And I think that paper is perfect to go, portraits, landscapes. And
anything.
what kind of paint do you use to do your rocks? I'm sure people are like wondering, do you use the granulating paints? Do you use the Permatex with Daniel Smith?
I have a basic palette that I use for, of course, it's kind of wet or, it's been used a lot. And I can do a lot of things with permanent brown.
Wow.
Yeah. Lunar earth. Sometimes I'll use that. But I teach with my, with these colors. And so that's generally what I use. Permanent brown, I've got quinacridone gold, raw sienna, buff titanium, add buff titanium to what is it? Quinacridone rose, and you get potter's pink. Add it to your permanent brown, and you've kind of got it burnt sienna. You can mix your colors, though I do have a bigger palette with more Daniel Smith colors, like Tiger's Eye Genuine and Burnt Scarlet. I probably have about 6 of those, but I don't use them that much because I've got my smaller palette.
Very nice, very nice. And in a time now where we kind of can get a lot of information quick, what would you say to be a pro artist someday?
I would say to just keep painting, follow your heart, enter competitions before you think you're ready. Don't wait, because I waited. And I'm like, oh, that would have been great. Why was I insecure about entering it? Just start doing it as soon as you paint something that you like, that's original and has some wow about it, whatever it is, and start enter local shows, go for the big shows. That does make a difference.
And I can agree with you because I was a director of the San Diego Watercolor Society, and people would get so excited that they got Jared into the show, and it gave them this momentum, you know,
Mhm.
it built their confidence. Their painting was right next to, I remember one gal was like, she was in happy tears because her painting was right next to like a Keiko Tanabe painting, you know?
Yeah.
And so like you never know because each juror is different. If you don't get into a show, if anything, that's going to give you some fire and some excitement to paint even better. Um, who are some artists that you mentioned, you know, Charles Reed and other artists? Who are some artists that you know that maybe are gone that you wish you could probably sit at a table and ask them questions?
Oh, now I have to think. John Singer Sargent, of course. All of, I think most of us wish we could paint or watch him paint. Um, they're gone. Frank Webb passed away recently, and I'm glad I took his class. I quote him all the time when I'm teaching. Some real foundational things that I learned. Um, I wasn't thinking about that.
No,
But
it's fine.
on.
The- Those are great names because as a beginner, they don't know Frank Webb, and Frank Webb's got some great books on there. His paintings look very abstract, but they're very simplified, you know. And Sargent, you'd be surprised how many people don't know a Sargent painting, but they've walked by it numerous times in a museum,
Right.
and those are great. Thank you so much for sharing those.
And I get excited when I see that famous oil painters did watercolors too. Well, like Georgia O'Keeffe. She started with watercolors. She's another one. I love her work. So anyway, now all these names will come all day.
Yeah,
Oh, I should have said
I,
about
I
this
put you
artist.
on the hot seat. There's some questions I have here is brushes. How did you know which brushes to use?
Well, of course, I bought every brush that every teacher recommended along the way. And after time, you find what works for you, right? And I still bought brushes during the watercolor live. Like, oh, I want that one. I want that one. But my basic brush is the Dynasty black gold
Oh yeah,
um, quill brush. There it is. And they're inexpensive.
yeah,
I
they
get
are.
them online. Dick Blick carries them, and the brush guys.
Brush
So
guys.
$16 for the big one, and like a zero. Well, I don't know. This is a 2, so maybe $12. Because I bought all those expensive Kolinsky brushes, and I don't get along with them. But that's, yeah. So that's how I ended up with my favorite brush. But I got this Milan brush at the, where is it?
Oh yeah,
It this was at the American, or sorry, National Watercolor Society in my goodie bag.
nice.
Have you ever tried one of these?
I have.
I want to find out where to buy them because I've been looking and I can't find them anywhere. So this is an awesome brush. Um, I like rounds. I can do almost anything with a round, and I will mostly use one paintbrush through the whole thing. I don't mess around with lots of different brushes. Just
It's wonderful.
easier to travel.
Nice. What is a size that you would suggest for artists to kind of work with for a while as they're growing in their art making skills?
These are sized differently, but the 4 is kind of a little big, and a 0 is nice if you want something smaller. And that you can get a long way with those two brushes. And then I told you my paper, Fabriano. The palette, my basic palette is yellow or heritage, and it runs $8 to $20, $22, depending on where you buy it. And I use it for plein air and studio work. So, and pens, I do a lot of quick sketch in journals. I have tons of journals. And lately I've liked these Rotring, ROTRING pens for that.
Those are good. Those are really good. There was a question I definitely want to get. What are the challenges that you face when painting a watercolor piece?
Well, as you know, any piece of art presents challenges along the way, and you just need to be flexible and not be too set on what your vision is, because sometimes the nature of the painting takes it to a better place. Drawing, you know, if you're drawing with a pencil, you can erase, and that's just relax. Scribble on there, don't erase along the way, just kind of go for what you see and eliminate any clutter, anything you don't need. There's always something in there that does not belong. So that's one big thing. If you're drawing with a pen, I like to keep my pen down on the paper and create with one continuous line. And I always tell my students, when you make a mistake, don't worry about it. People aren't going to see the mistakes that you see. It's just the overall image that comes together. When you're painting, sometimes I'll put a spot of color right on my painting and it won't be right. So I just wet it and grab a paper towel and dab it up and it's gone. So I almost like to check right on the paper what it looks like within the, he's shaking his head. I like that you're doing that within the painting. Mr. Clean Magic Eraser changed my life. In watercolor painting, I used to soak my paintings in a tub and rub off areas. And now with Mr. Clean, I can gently lift. But I don't need to do that as much as I did when I started. You know, over time, one thing over time, you learn to watch for things that might give you trouble, but also you learn how to fix and finesse.
So good.
Oh, thanks.
Could you tell us about traveling? You take groups of people to Europe to go paint, and how important is that?
Oh, I live for those painting trips. They are what feed my soul for, like, not only when I'm there, but as I'm waiting to go there. You know, it's just, I always need to have a trip planned somewhere. I love seeing new places, and, you know, it gives you new material, but it also, you know, when you're teaching, when you take people, it's so rewarding to help them discover what they can create along the way and discover their own style. That my first workshop ever was in Provence. I had never taught before. It just kind of happened that way.
Wow.
And that was over 20 years ago. And I've been going ever since. And I go with my best friend, Teresa Gessling, she teaches with me. And so it's great because, you know, when you're the solo teacher on something like that, you've got a lot of people to take care of and encourage. And so we kind of work with everyone, and it's a great life experience all the way around.
And I'll put the link down in the description of this video. But how would people sign up to go with you on these trips?
Just go to my website at cindybriggs.com and you can see all my workshops, my trips, my in-person workshops, and I have a lot of online programs, which I started doing like 2 years before the pandemic. So I was running with that. And I love online. Isn't it great? We get to meet people from all over the world this way.
Yeah, I mean, I could learn in my pajamas. So it's pretty nice, right?
Yeah,
It really doesn't matter where I am. If I'm waiting at some doctor's appointment or eye appointment, I can sit there and watch it on my phone. It's great.
isn't it great?
For
It's
sure.
really
And you
opened
teach
up.
on Zoom as well,
Oh
for
yeah,
people that can't travel.
I have a lot of live Zoom events. I have online videos. I record all the video, the events, and I share them with my students. Everything from plein air. Well, yeah, I include plein air in my quick sketch program. I have portraits. Some of the portraits that are in my program are behind me. Some of the images you see behind me are from lessons that I've done in my All About Watercolors classes, Paint Tuscany, Watercolors by the Sea. I have beginner classes too. It's really fun. I'm
So,
grateful I get to do this.
so good. What is a mistake that you see happen with students going from beginner to intermediate?
Mistake. Well, some people jump into intermediate before they're ready. It depends too on the teacher, because I have, like you probably do, you have all levels in a group and you want to teach to all level, everybody. But no matter what, you have 5 people, they're all going to be in different places on the journey. So I think it's my responsibility to give the basics at the beginning, no matter what it is. If I'm teaching portraits, okay, this is how you make some different values. And then people are more ready to go. But as far as beginners go, just get those foundational watercolor basics down. Like, how do you fill your palette? So that the colors are in an order that makes sense and the paint is dry before you show up. And make sure you have good supplies because you'll paint better with good supplies. And so I know I needed a little help at the beginning, but I'd been an artist all my life. So drawing wasn't hard. Drawing's a good thing to get a little experience in when you start. But I teach drawing, so it's all doable. I think where are you personally? Do you want to jump in and just try it all and see what happens, or do you want to take it really slow and feel comfortable with each step? Does that make sense?
It totally makes sense.
Okay.
And some people might be watching this and they're still with us and watching, and they might be a person that maybe they've had something tragic happen in their life, and they haven't been painting in a while. What would you say to that person that would get them starting painting again?
Mm, I think everybody's had a challenging situation in their life and they get stuck. Or I have. And I hear from my students that are going through hard things. And for me, I just sort of love them into it and listen. And not everyone is that mindset. You look for teachers that I think that all teachers are caring and they want the best for you, but some are a little more open to communicating and sharing, and then yeah, some are more open to that. So I would just encourage them to find somebody they're comfortable with. And that doesn't happen overnight. Ask friends. Who are you taking classes from? Who do you like? Who are you comfortable with? And most artists now have videos on YouTube, at least one, right? So you can get a taste for that. Or these events like we were just in, where you just kind of get a little taste of so many artists. You connect with certain people. It's just natural.
So good. So good. And I couldn't agree any much better because I've had teachers that are like straight arrows that only talk watercolor. And then I've had instructors, they will give you their whole philosophy on your life and maybe capturing negative words while you're painting. Or there's fun instructors that just, they're really good. You'd be like, do you do stand-up comedy? And there's a time and a place, And Cindy, I'm just curious, do you see, I mean, watercolor's thriving right now. It's doing really well. Do you see any trends that are going on? I remember when Yupo came out and people were like poo-pooed on Yupo, and maybe you want to try it, maybe not, but it was a trending thing and now it's accepted all over. Do you see any trends or anything happening with watercolor?
I'm no expert. What I'm seeing more, because I think of myself as more of a classical artist. I'm not abstract. I'm not extreme. Sometimes I push a little bit, but I'm comfortable with painting realism in my way. What I'm seeing in the watercolor shows is more diversity. That the jurors are accepting or inviting such a range of styles in, from very graphic and very, very natural scenes, to abstracts, to like very intimate scenes. I was just looking at the website and I forget the name of the artist, but it was all these mechanical parts and pieces that fit together. And I think just good art comes in so many different forms, and watercolors are experimenting more and more. So as far as the Yupo paper, I did not get along with that.
Either.
But I had to fix somebody's painting once. She really wanted it to be good. And I'm like, okay, we're going to solve this. But yeah, you kind of find what your niche is and then expand on it. Like if I'm doing portraits, I'm expanding more on color, but I'll still be my own style. Even if I'm painting mountains and portraits together, they go together.
I love what I'm hearing. I mean, you took us down this great journey of starting with this paint by numbers painting to buying every brush that your teacher and other teachers recommended. And you really spoke into a nice little sensitive part there about, how to get painting again. And I love the fact that you talked and shared your passion about how what you were painting got you over to Europe. And I just want to thank you so much for your time. Where can you talked about your website? Where can people also find and connect with you? Maybe social media?
Oh yeah, I'm on Instagram and Facebook and Pinterest, and YouTube. I've got lots of videos on YouTube for somebody who just wants to take a look. And Twitter, LinkedIn, we got to do all that stuff now, right?
We do, and some people think, we just paint pictures and put them in galleries, and really there isn't. There's like this marathon, the pillar thing, where we teach, we do commissions, we we kind of we're kind of essentially like, I think you're an entrepreneur as well as a painter. You're really good about getting yourself out there. And I think a lot of these people that want to build a career in art, they could probably take some classes from you and learn from you, and get there. And so I'm also going to put down in the link, and people can go watch your demo you did with Daniel Smith, where we got to ask you some really great questions. But thank you so much, Cindy. I appreciate your time.
You made this easy.
I
I'm
I
glad I found
I,
you.
I want to go with you to the cottages in Europe, and hopefully my dream and my bucket list is to teach one of those someday too. But
Oh,
thank
I
you
really
so
do.
much. I appreciate you. We adore you. You have the kindest, gentle spirit, and the way you approach your painting, it really makes other people feel like they can paint a portrait too. So thank you so much.
Thank you. That was great. That was a lot of fun.
All right, see you guys.
All right. Bye-bye.
Wow, wasn't a super good interview? These interviews have been great, but Cindy Briggs brought something super special. I hope this gave you some wonderful encouragement of where you should go with your next watercolor adventures. Go ahead and click the links provided down there in the description where you can find out more from her. Look forward to other interviews that we got coming up. If you just now catching on to these interviews, there are some other interviews. Thank you so much for being a part of this. I appreciate the comments, smashing that like button, and sharing. You guys have been sharing these so good. Thank you. Well, have a wonderful day and keep those brushes wet. See you. Bye. Wait a minute. I forgot to tell you guys about the super cool event that I got coming up with. It's a Zoom teaching with Cheap Joe's Art Supplies, and you're gonna want to jump into this if you're wanting to learn boats, bridges, and beaches. This is the course for you. Go ahead and check out that wonderful description. If this is something you think one of your friends are going to enjoy, go ahead and hit that share button, and go ahead and pound the like button if you felt this content was helpful. Thank you. Take care.